How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Robert Arms. My name's Rob. I'm the host of this channel. Welcome back to Gun Anatomy, where I discuss the origins and mechanisms of common and uncommon weapon platforms. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started right now. Perhaps you're going on a trip to Rome, for business of course, and you happen to encounter some very heavily armed individuals in a tunnel system. Perhaps you may need something big, bold, for the end of the night. Perhaps I can suggest the Benelli M4. 12-gauge semi-automatic with a dual short-stroke piston system, illuminated dot reticle for easier target acquisition, 2-round tube extension, shortened buttstock for quicker shouldering, and I know you will appreciate the titanium Cerakote, in case things get a little rusty. An Italian classic.
Yeah.
The Benelli M4, otherwise known by its U.S. military designation as the M1014, is a combat shotgun derived from the Super 90 series of shotguns developed by Benelli Army based in Urbino, Italy. These shotguns are known for their sleek finish, high quality, and reliability in harsh conditions, being used in many applications by various law enforcement and military organizations. The M4, typically fitted with a 3-position twisting or fixed pistol grip stock with 5 to 7 round tube capacity, makes it very useful for offensive and defensive capabilities. The M4's claim to fame is its Argo system, developed by Benelli to be able to reliably and efficiently cycle a variety of 12-gauge ammunition. The M4 has an extensive service history since its inception, with the United States military, particularly the United States Marine Corps, and the Italian militaries, along with many other various organizations around the world. It also shares a very prolific cultural appearance in many forms of media, from video games to movies, like John Wick, Rainbow Six Siege, and many, many more. This is all due to the genius of its designers, which leads to my next segment, the lore. If y'all want to skip this portion of the video, which, newsflash, I suggest you don't, go ahead and click on the timestamp I've provided below so you can skip to the part where I explain how this weapon works on the inside. The Benelli M4 was developed under the Super 90 series of shotguns developed by Benelli Army. It traces its lineage to the HK512 semi-automatic shotgun, developed in partnership with Heckler & Koch and Benelli subsidiary, Franchi, I'm going with Franchi, in the early 1970s to deliver a new semi-automatic shotgun option for German counterterrorism units like GSG-9.
I had to deal drugs, and I was so good at it that it got me a promotion.
Dog, it's a Benelli video. I'm gonna milk the hell out of the Rainbow Six references. What made this particular design pretty interesting was the use of a fixed choke on the end of its barrel. This was done to prevent pellets from spreading too far apart in an effort to contain collateral damage as requested by GSG-9. Now, generally speaking, the only thing that it has in common with the original Super 90 is visual similarity of design. In terms of its operation, it's nothing like the original Super 90 because the HK512 is completely gas operated, and it doesn't have a separate bolt head like in an inertia system, but I will discuss that here in a minute. In the early 1980s, Franchi's parent company, Benelli, had a drive to develop a semi-automatic shotgun to sell to law enforcement and military organizations based off of the principles of the 512 design. In 1986, the first weapon out of the Super 90 series was finally developed, the Benelli M1. I had a chance to buy one of those a while ago, and I didn't do it. I regret it. The Benelli Super 90 M1 was a very popular shotgun amongst militaries and law enforcement all over the world, but the key to its real success was its inertia operating system, which, if you allow me to try to briefly explain how it works. The system begins with a shell chambered in the bore. When the hammer swings and strikes the back of the firing pin, located in the bolt carrier group, it hits the back of the primer, igniting the gunpowder in the cartridge and launching the projectiles. Now, right when that happens, inside of the bolt carrier group of the shotgun, there's a bolt face that is separated with a spring underneath it that compresses once that initial firing begins. And when that pressure is blasted out of the end of the muzzle, all that pressure is compressing into that spring, and then using the laws of inertia, launches the entire bolt carrier group itself rearward, while also delaying it long enough so that gases don't flow into the receiver, contacting all the mechanisms. The Benelli Super 90 M1 became a staple for combat and sporting shotguns for many years, until the development of the Benelli M2. The Benelli M2 was very similar to the M1, carrying over a lot of major design features like the inertia system, with the only differences that I could seem to find were cosmetic and maybe a difference in barrel design. Any of you Benelli nerds in the comment section could probably tell me exactly what the differences are between the two, because I really couldn't find much. Carrying on into the 1990s, development led to the next weapon in the series of Super 90 shotguns, the Benelli M3. What made this particular design unique was, even though it carried over many similar design features like the inertia system, yet again, it actually featured an option to be able to use pump action capability, very similar to Bronchi's shotgun used in Jurassic Park. In 1998, the United States Department of Defense issued out a solicitation out of ARDEC, an armament research center. It was a request for a new design for a semi-automatic combat shotgun to be issued to the United States military. As a response, Benelli created and designed its latest iteration of the Super 90 series, the Benelli M4. By far the biggest design change that was implemented in this iteration of the Super 90 series was its use of the Argo piston system, which stands for auto-regulating gas operated. This dual short-stroke piston system was very innovative in shotgun design. It was clean and reliable, a requirement by the Department of Defense. After the first 5 initial experimental designs were submitted, they went through a very vigorous and intense testing period, succeeding in adoption and being designated the M1014 by the United States military. The Benelli M4 would go on to serve in many combat operations, particularly with the United States Marine Corps and many other military organizations all over the world, earning itself the reputation as an Italian classic. I hope you learned something from that segment. If you want to learn more about how this weapon was developed, I will link some sources below in the description that I used in the making of this video. Without further ado, let's go ahead and show how this weapon works on the inside. The Benelli M4 operates from auto-regulating gas operation, which is a dual short-stroke piston system. The shooter begins by loading the shells into the magazine tube. The shooter then lifts the shell release lever to eject a shell into the carrier and racks the bolt to chamber a shell, or a shell can be chambered from the breech itself. The shooter lines up and presents. When the trigger is pulled, it releases the hammer, which strikes the back of the firing pin located in the bolt carrier group. When the firing pin strikes the primer, it ignites the gunpowder in the shell, launching the projectiles through the bore. At the same time, as the hammer swings, the shell release lever is timed to swing down with the hammer via a spring to allow the shell stop to move, in order to allow a shell to eject from the magazine tube into the carrier. Meanwhile, the combustion gases flow through the barrel, and it is rerouted through 2 portholes that flow between 2 gas pistons and gas plugs that are forced to move opposite of each other. The gas plugs are spring-loaded, launching rearward like a valve to allow the optimum amount of high-pressure gas to contact the pistons and flow in between them, then closing. This is what makes the system auto-regulating. As the dual pistons push the bolt carrier rearward, the bolt head rotates and extracts the empty shell and launches out via the ejector. As this happens, the hammer is caught with the disconnector, and the breech bolt latch is pressed downwards, spring-loaded by the carrier spring plunger. The mouse tail of the bolt carrier compresses into the buffer tube spring, then decompresses, launching it forward. At the same time, a notch cut into the bolt carrier pressures the breech bolt latch to tilt upwards under pressure of the carrier spring plunger in a fulcrum, tilting the carrier upwards to align the next shell with the bolt face. When the shell is pushed into the chamber, the carrier rests back into position. The bolt then chambers the next shell and pushes the pistons back into position, and the trigger catches the hammer, ready to start the process all over again. I guess I haven't really been making some proper outros for these videos since this channel is relatively young. If you want to support this channel, go ahead and follow my Instagram at RobertArmsOfficial, which I will link below in the description for any new announcements or anything going on with the channel. I'll try to make sure to keep making content as often as I can and keep this channel growing. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope to see y'all in the next video. Stay safe.